a week where Joe Manchin realized he still wants to like keep one mirror in his home, just one, and he's agreed to come to the table and support other Democrats for the first time in what is being called the Inflation Reduction Act. So it is a $369 billion package that addresses climate change, healthcare, inflation, and taxes, and it's to be spent over the next 10 years. It is a far cry from that $1.7 trillion that was supposed to be the Build Back Better bill, but it's got some aspects of it, and many are asking for the perfect not to be the enemy of the meh. It does promise to reduce carbon emissions by 40% by 2030, which is not, I think it was 50% by 2030. So it's like, take that 10% here, 10% there. $60 billion pledged for environmental justice programs, investments in sustainable agriculture, billions of dollars for renewables. It lets Medicare negotiate prescription drug prices, but that only takes effect in 2026, and it begins with only 10 drugs.
Not insulin either, which is like the most egregious case.
It's insane. Right, exactly. Because, of course, Manchin and his family making money off of the insulin market. And it would cap out-of-pocket drug costs for seniors at $2,000 a year. So, I mean, I guess still seems like a lot of money, but okay. They're going to pay for it by a 15% minimum tax on corporations with profits over $1 billion, closing a capital gains carried interest loophole, increasing funding for the IRS so it can up enforcement and actually like go after rich people who avoid taxes for once. And it's got mixed reviews, y'all, in terms of, is it going to pass? Is it all that good? I want to show a little bit of like maybe it will or will not pass. Kirsten Sinema, of course, has not weighed in at all.
Right.
But what it needs to pass is moderate support. And of course, Democrats only have a slim majority. And after the recess, the party will have a margin of only 3 votes in the House, which is not good. Progressives have broadly sounded bullish on the bill, even though it's much narrower than what Democrats had originally hoped to pass. Pramila Jayapal saying, if we can get it done, and I believe we can, there's a real deal here. But the last uncertainty plaguing the bill is simple logistics, because the Senate is set to skip town on August 5th for lawmakers' annual summer recess. That leaves just a week for Democrats to pass the bill before they head out. It's not a lot of time, and it's further complicated by a recent surge in COVID-19 cases in Congress, which has meant members can't be at the Capitol in person to cast their votes. Are we not voting by Zoom at this point?
I do not know why that's not the case.
You can I bet you can filibuster by Zoom in the Senate, but you're like, no, you can't vote by Zoom.
You can filibuster by not doing anything at all. You just there used to be a talking filibuster. Now it's just a amorphous entity.
Exactly. You don't even have to log into Zoom. You do not even have to blur out your background, bro.
Yeah, you just need to like fart and sit on your ass and you filibustered.
Yeah. So this is what this bill is. I want to ask your opinions. I did look to Bill McKibben, who has been praising this bill and kind of saying, Bill McKibben, obviously notorious climate activist, a journalist, writer, and he feels good about it. But he does say it is no unmitigated victory. It's larded with presents for the fossil fuel industry in return for gifts they've lavished on Manchin. It may come with real defeats. The fear is that when all the details are revealed, Biden will have committed himself to backing absurd projects like the MVP pipeline. So yet another pipeline. But even those defeats kind of make the case because people fought so hard to oppose such projects, the tide eventually became too much for Manchin to bear. He basically, and he goes on and he says that essentially Manchin tanking any kind of climate progress, that had ripple effects. And he eventually felt some amount of pressure and decided to come to the table because of this. I wanted this last thing. And he says basically everyone who brought this fight to the whole new terrain, the scientists who protested, the policy wonks who wonked, the people whose particular fights have been sacrificed by the terms of the deal, them in particular, if Manchin had to deal because a pipeline he wanted was going down in flames, well, the people who made that possible are heroes. So, and this is what I saw from Sunrise Movement as well, which was essentially look, if we pass a robust version of this bill, it could be really good. McKibben's saying it could be good. There might be some poison pills. But for the most part, let's start somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, look, you got to take anything at this point, given the situation that Manchin has put the Democrats in and Sinema, to, I think, a even larger extent to a degree, because, well, yeah, he's the at the head of the climate committee, as he has personal investments in coal. She is really she's acting as a Lieberman type figure in terms of being the person who is standing in the way of any legislation being passed in favor of Wall Street and pharmaceutical companies, where Manchin's constituency is much clearer in terms of just coal, oil, and gas. That's his thing. And you can also understand what his incentives are, which it's harder to understand hers. His approval rating goes up when he tanks Biden's legislation, and now he eventually has been broken, and he had this agreement with Schumer, which was an oddly successful piece of maneuvering. The first time I've seen Schumer outsmart not Joe Manchin, I should say, McConnell,
right,
was that, I mean, you could argue it was at the start of 2021 when they passed that larger COVID relief bill, which was also a success. That was also the time when they should have rammed Build Back Better through to a degree, but they decided they need to bring Republicans into the process, and here we are. But at the Manchin played it well for his purposes. He cut it down to 1/9 of what it was initially supposed to be, and he got pro oil and gas amendments including an emphasis on carbon capture technology, which most serious climate activists essentially say is just a way to keep pumping carbon into the air, and then you capture it back. And there's an
plant a tree.
Yeah, there's an overstatement about if that technology is even actually usable. For the most part, it's perceived as a fantasy put forth by the oil and gas industry to that degree. So Sinema still could stand in the way because this bill contains a carried interest loophole closure. I believe that is goes into effect, I think, in 3 to 5 years in terms of where they push the taxation. This is off the top of my head, so I don't remember. But most private equity merger deals are like 5 to 7 years, so it gets around it. She could potentially support it while still, sticking up for the Wall Street people, as she's want to do. So there is
because the finger trap works like Manchin's against any new spending and she's against any new taxes.
Right.
So they kind of like have, they
well
have
said.
us
Yeah.
Right. They have us in that bind. I've been talking about that for a little bit. And I mean, yeah, right. We'll see. I guess my thing is like, even if this does pass, the other thing that Manchin stipulates that we know is nowhere in this bill is anything punitive for the fossil fuel industry. Anything punitive, right? It's like, we will work hard to create renewables, but that might also, who knows, that might also be in the form of a massive handout to like BP or like the fossil fuel industry itself for their renewable programs, like, and the fact that, and it's kind of like everything we're doing, we kind of are like, again, eating our own tail, sort of like are chasing, or like trying to rearrange the decks on the Titanic. And I feel that with, this whole like the CHIPS bill that's supposed to be amazing, but actually isn't. This climate bill that you're like, I guess it's better than nothing. But if you don't have a framework for actually reining in the fossil fuel industry, then you're pretty much just doing nothing. If you're not stopping drilling on federal lands, which is this bill does not do, if you're not putting moratoriums on fracking wells, etc., we're still going down this horrible slippery slope that we all know we've been going on. Bill McKibben used to say, I mean, he still does, you have to treat the fossil fuel industry like enemy number one, like they're an enemy of the people. So the fact that he's like, look, this is better than nothing, and it was hard work. I don't know what that's.
I want it to pass, but again, the reality is that we don't know if that's going to happen because of Sinema, and this also has to get sent to the House. And Josh Gottheimer is on his like freaking crusade to reinstate the SALT deduction, which is a tax break for the wealthiest in New Jersey and New York suburbs. It largely affects the top 10%, and it's a way for them to basically deduct certain taxes because these are high areas outside of Manhattan that have, a lot of wealthy people and very high taxes. So,
and lots of ex-wives buried in golf courses.
Oh yes. You forget, Francesca, that I grew up in New Jersey and I know that golf course. So next time I drive by, I will, salute the ghost of Ivana. And I'm so sorry that she had to be buried in mud and just her body just tossed in there because he cheaped out on the coffin. I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but
you know that for a fact though. Like I'm a bet. If there was a nice coffin, this is the same thing with Trump's dick. I'm sorry. This is a bit that I have, but I'm like, we would see that coffin if it was like marble.
Oh yeah.
He doesn't, like if Trump didn't have a mangled, disgusting fucking worm of a penis, like he would have leaked this a long time ago.
Yeah, he would have. I mean, he doesn't leave a lot to the imagination, so.
Oh man. Well, look. Also, just a shout out to the protesters in Schumer's office who were congressional staffers, 6 of whom got arrested, basically around this issue, demanding that Schumer do something on climate. And it looks like, yeah, he got at least Manchin to the table. We'll see how the other side of the finger trap goes and, what she wants. If she's like, we need a sleeveless day in the Senate. And you're like, nobody wants to see Mitch McConnell's arms, but okay.
What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room. Do it.